you're in opposition, I think people need to talk. Sometimes, you know, flexing muscles is not very healthy.
It is true.
Anavyosema Waswahili, vita vya panzi, vita vya kunguru.
Vita vya panzi, kunguru, yes.
Or when two animals, the huge animals like elephants, fight, it's the grass that suffers. So when politicians fight, it's a common person who suffers. So it's a kind of catch-22 situation that whoever is involved, whether in opposition or in governance, I think the best thing is dialogue, for people to appreciate that things are tough.
Yes.
And for people to appreciate that everyone has a constituent they represent. Everyone has followers.
Yes.
And you cannot ignore those followers just because you are on the driving seat. You have to reach out to them. And you cannot also use your constituents or followership to maybe cajole and you know, twist the person who is in the driver's seat. You know, you have to help them so that all of you in that vehicle can reach the destination safely.
You've put it perfectly. You know, it's the same thing that I'm seeing Muhammad Maluki, who was leading the Muslim leaders. He said, you know, Ramadan is you know, Muslims want a peaceful and conductive environment, you know. And just as you say, the dialogue is very important, because at the end of the day, the people who are suffering are not the leaders, but the common mwananchi. Now, moving to the third page of the Friday Bulletin, and this is tips for the best Ramadan ever. What are your tips, you know, Ramadan coming, what would you give me, what would you give us, to anyone who's listening? What are your tips for this Ramadan, inshallah?
Well, we are told that first and foremost, we have to have that intention, because we are a few days away, and as they say, actions are judged by their intention.
Yeah, it is true.
We don't know whether we will make it that day, but once we have the intention, inshallah, and we don't make it, Allah will reward us for our intention. So first and foremost, of course, is for us to have our intention very clear. And secondly is to prepare ourselves in terms of reducing our workload and our, you know, schedules, tight schedules, so that we can really prepare ourselves for Ramadan. And maybe the other thing is to start, you know, warm up, as they say. You know, even you know, those people in soccer, when they want to be replaced, when they want to join the team. If they've realized that the coach has realized he wants to change someone or substitute, as they say, then they point at you and you start warming up. So as Muslims also, we should start warming up. Not maybe by fasting. I mean, if you can fast for those days that are times that are allowed to fast, people can start fasting. But also just the routine of sleep. Of waking up at night, you know, there are people who wake up or people who don't wake up at all, you know. So you have to, and there are people who don't sleep early, they sleep very late. So because of the ibadah of Ramadan and what comes with it, you know, people have to start really preparing themselves for that, you know, going to bed early, waking up at night, doing your tahajjud. Just basically preparing ourselves, because you have Tarawih, then you have Tahajjud, then you have Suhoor, then you have the Quran to read through, you have Darsas to attend to. So basically, I think that's what we need to do as we prepare for Ramadan. And in terms of even diet, trying to get the right diet, because during Ramadan, I think people mistake Ramadan for a food festival. So it's just eating healthy, making sure you are eating a balanced diet during Ramadan. You're supposed to do that throughout, but let's eat healthy so that we do not come out with a lot of other diseases. You remember when Rasul, among the gifts he was given those years back, was a doctor, and he said we don't need doctors because we don't eat too much.
Yes.
You know, so if you eat much, then you will have to visit a doctor. Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Is there anything else you would love to add on to that when it comes to Ramadan? And we're moving on to the 4th page, and it's something that, you know, we can't even go far. Less dishes, more prayer, and that's the topic over there. What's cooking this Ramadan? Less dishes, more prayer. And this is just, you know, to add on to what you're saying. You know, people think Ramadan is a food festival, and you know, for mothers, for wives, for sisters, for daughters who are probably helping around in the house, you know, they're gonna prioritize making meals, they're gonna forget their ibadah. So this is a Ramadan whereby, you know, you've put your niyas, you've mentioned, and realizing that this is a month of ibadah, you know, so you also have to divide and you know, have your priorities straight. What would you tell everyone who, you know, especially the women while preparing for Ramadan?
Well, I think one, there's of course it's not only our sisters, it's because we also as the men folk, you know, this is the time you're inviting our friends and relatives over. Yes. To have iftar with you, and therefore of course they need to make more than what we ordinarily have or ordinarily make is there because you're expecting visitors. Yeah. But I think we overdo it because you have too many different you know, cuisines, like yes. or dishes, like you would have fish cooked in you know, 3-4 types. You would have meat like that, you know, rather than if it's just meat, it's either dry meat or with stew. If it's just fish, like that. If it's ugali, I'm sure not many people favor ugali during Ramadan. But basically, I think we, as the article says here, we should also balance out. Yes. And we should also not really burden our sisters and our wives so much to the extent that they don't participate in other forms of ibadah, but just cooking. Yes. So, I mean, invite less people, less times. You know, you don't have every day to invite people. Yes. You know, you can have at least a few times a week, or so that you, if you invite, rather than invite, if you have 10 people, rather than invite 3 or 4 every day, you could say maybe you invite all the 10 on one day, yes. one occasion. Yes. You all celebrate together. Then maybe you let your sisters and your wives and your mothers have a rest so that they can also participate in the ibadah. Yes. Yes. This reminds me of a story I was reading in a book recently about a wealthy man. I think it was one of the countries, the Arab countries, and he invited people over one time for iftar, and he told people, like, you know, you guys are very welcomed to my house for iftar on this and this date. So everyone was excited about it because they knew the kinds of foods they were going to eat, considering he was a very, very wealthy man. Mm-hmm. And when they got there, to their shock or their surprise, they were only given a dish of bread and butter. And they were, you know, they were welcomed very well, and they were given the bread and butter. And, you know, they sat there wondering, okay, what's the next meal? Only to realize that there was no next meal. And the wealthy man came out and he said, you know what, you guys have lost the whole essence of Ramadan. Yes, yes. It's not about feasting, it's yes. about simplicity yes. and being able to understand the reason and the moral, you know, lesson out of Ramadan. True. And I always remember that, and I just laugh. Yeah, now moving on to the 5th page of today's Friday Bulletin, and I think this is something that we've also mentioned. You know, you've given us your tips, your tips to, you know, help with Ramadan, and, you know, just this is now for the youth. What would you tell, any one tip, anything that you would like to tell young people, especially those who, you know, young people from the ages of 12 to probably 18 who are going to be observing the holy month of Ramadan? Well, Ramadan comes in to really help us, because once in a while you get our doctors put us on diet. Yes. Ramadan comes in terms of helping our bodies really release all those toxics that we take by fasting and denying ourselves of food for a certain period of time. Of course, apart from the other forms of ibadah, you know, reading Quran, yes, coming closer to Allah, you know, doing adhkar, not involving ourselves in things that otherwise would reduce the benefit or the full benefit of our saum.
Yes.
But when it comes to, because I think here it comes to the whole essence of maybe food and indulgence in other activities. You know, it's ironical that we think that Ramadan is the only month we should desist from committing sin or involving ourselves in sinful acts. No. It's just that the reward and the punishment is double.
Yes.
So if you do something good during the month of Ramadan, the reward is a little bit more than ordinary months.
Yes.
But we are supposed to desist or abstain from any acts that Allah has forbidden throughout our lives, not just Ramadan. So when the youth tell you, will I do this, will I not do this, maybe what they're asking is, will I club, will I not club, you know, during Ramadan. It's unfortunate that people live in an unholy union the whole year, then just before Ramadan, they go and make it halal by doing nikah. Oh, you know, now I'm staying with this person, you know, they cannot cook for me, I cannot, you know, because, you know, if true you have lived in a bad union, I mean a sinful union, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Yeah. So you should not just go rush to make it right just because it's Ramadan. Yeah. So for youth, I can see someone asking about sporting. Well, sporting is okay, as long as, of course, you don't participate in a sport that will wear you down. You don't participate in a sport that will want, will have you take, you know, be too thirsty, yes, and want to take water or drink water. Yes. You moderate yourself. I know people who go to the gym and they don't do it in the morning. Yeah. They might want to do it later in the afternoon, so that by the time they feel their body needs water, it's during iftar time. Yes. Yeah. So, but if you go to the gym in the morning and you need to drink a lot of water and you're fasting, then what happens? So in terms of sports, it's just to regulate yourself and maybe change the routine of doing sports. There are people who do it later in the evening. Once you've had your iftar, you've done your Isha and Taraweh, you might want to do a 30 minutes, you know, or 45 minutes gym or exercise before you go to bed. Or you might want to do it a little bit, you know, very early in the morning before you have your suhoor. You see? So it's just a matter of changing the routine, but it doesn't really mean we do not continue with our normal activities. Of course, if the activities that are within the confines of what Allah has allowed. Yes. Thank
you so much for that. And I'm being reminded that time is up, unfortunately. But this is just to say that there are various stories as well remaining on today's Friday Bulletin. One of them I'd like us to finish off is the Muslim Education Council's Executive Director, Munawar Khan, passed away earlier this week on Tuesday morning. And he is a revered and, you know, well-known educationist, being also the former principal of Alim High School as well as the Wami High School, and he was also a member of the Jamia Mosque Committee. And subhanAllah, you know, this is a time of reflection and, you know, realizing that when you have a renowned and influential person among the Muslim community, it's very important to remember him and his, you know, life filled with light. What would you say about that? Yeah,
well, may Allah reward him and reward his efforts, especially in the education. He was at the forefront of, and he participated in quite a number of education initiatives, education institutions. He's founded quite a number of education institutions and managed quite a number of them. And his contribution cannot really be washed down because it's really immense. The Muslim Education Council being in place courtesy of really his efforts.
Yes.
And even the madrasa curriculum,
yeah.
we now have a madrasa curriculum, also courtesy of the Muslim Education Council, which was being led by him. So we have to celebrate his achievement.
Yes.
And just pray that, of course, he's immensely rewarded by Allah, but we also encourage other Muslims to take up such a kind of leadership, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah. Mr. Musa, thank you so much for always joining us here on Horizon TV. I think next week will be Ramadan.
Yes.
So to everybody who's watching, to every Muslim out there, we wish them a blessed Ramadan, full of khair and immense blessings. Once again, thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. This was the Muslim Insight, the show that brings you your weekly news recap, as well as you've seen the review of today's Friday Bulletin. Once again, thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. Until next Friday, ma'as salam.
Well, thank you very much.